Hi, I'm Chris with the Craft Beer Connoisseurs, and before the episode begins, I just wanted to provide you with a little information on who we are and how you can stay updated on all of our content. This podcast was created to showcase craft breweries and indulge in interesting conversation. We want to help promote a variety of breweries, and along the way have conversations ranging from sports to beer, and beer to, well, just about anything. Please feel free to follow us on Instagram at Craft Beer Cons, send a friend request on Untapped, or subscribe on YouTube at Craft Beer Connoisseurs. Also, drop a comment, like, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Now, stay tuned for today's episode. Welcome to Craft Beer Connoisseurs. I'm Chris.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Tyler. Along with us is our producer, Lawrence.
And in today's episode, we'll be reviewing Lot 10 Brewing in Amherstburg, Ontario.
Yeah, we're going to be showcasing two beers. The first is Nuclear Sunset, and that's a New England IPA. And the second is going to be called Pinky Pledge, and that's raspberry wheat.
And then we're going to wrap up the episode with a spooky conversation on Halloween.
As we mentioned, Lot 10 is located in Amherstburg, Ontario. Now, Amherstburg is a historic town on the banks of Detroit River.
Right, yeah. No, we actually went to school in Windsor, so
Yeah.
I remember driving by on the highway.
Very close to
inside,
Amherstburg, yeah.
Which is good. So, yeah, Lot 10, they've got a couple of traditional beers on tap there, as well as some seasonal beers and some beers with some twists. And also they do some beer-inspired cocktails. I've seen that a little bit more in some other breweries.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Especially-
Seems to be a fad to get the ladies in there, right? 'Cause at the
Yeah,
end of the day-
exactly. People who aren't interested in beer as much, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Lot 10 Brewery takes its name from the original plot of land, originally owned by Captain Hector McLean in 1798. Man, that's a long time ago.
That is a long
A little
time.
history.
It's been used for many things over the past 200 years before coming what it is today, being the brewery.
Yeah, and we're glad that it is a brewery, and I know that they're pretty new. So they actually just opened their doors in June of 2019 as they got their license to serve beer in a glass. So really new brewery, just over a year old.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I've never been there myself. I don't think any of us have.
No,
correct?
I
No,
not.
I haven't been there, but I definitely would like to.
Right. And looking at the website, looking through some of the pictures and some information that they provided to us, it is a big space for a new brewery. They've got
Yeah.
some 70 seats or so.
Yeah, that's
that-
what they advertise on their website. So yeah, that's a good healthy size.
And
of a brewery.
the interior looks absolutely stunning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is nice.
Right?
It looks nice for sure.
And it has that kind of historic look, like, you know, a historic Amherstburg. The interior is kind of like that as
It
well.
was nice that they built that into the actual brewery itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it was an old tavern, so I think they kind of kept that going through with the theme, right?
There's
So
been a few beers drank there, I think, in the actual building itself in the
Yeah,
last 200 years,
definitely.
it seems like.
I respect the tavern thing because when you look at our logo too, that was kind of what we were going through, is like a tavern or saloon kind of theme.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to attending this kind of location when we can get out there. So-
Absolutely. Because, you know, it is the only craft brewery in downtown Amherstburg, right?
Right.
You
Yeah,
can't miss it because it's the only one there, right?
Right.
That is true.
Yeah. So and I know that I've seen on their social media that you know, it's kind of like an older little street there that they have, and I know that they kind of open it up at night and they just have the patios out on the street, which would be awesome. There's probably a few other restaurants if you can kind of go back and forth between everything. Nice little experience like that.
Absolutely. It seems like they host a lot of local musicians from the area, which is always nice, especially in this time of COVID, that you get to be able to go out and see live music. I know we're not going to see any big concerts or anything like that, but just to have somebody playing
Just,
some
yeah,
old
support
classics
local.
or some new songs that they wrote, it's perfect. They also have trivia and the big fad about the paint nights and the art nights now,
Right.
that my wife's really into.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good vibe actually going back to the street being closed down and going from one location to the next location. That seems like a very small town kind of thing.
For sure.
You'd get to see a lot of people. It's similar, I guess, to Las Vegas in a smaller scale. A little bit.
like a
lot
little
smaller.
smaller.
A little bit. But the availability of going from one location to the next location, have a couple beers here, maybe go grab some food there, see a musician at one
Almost
space.
seems like a little bit of a pub crawl, just kind of within that little block,
Absolutely.
2-block radius, right? Nothing wrong with a good pub crawl.
And everybody is supporting each other because
Absolutely.
that's the thing with that, right? You shut down the whole street, you can go from one business to another business. Everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
You're supporting, you're drawing people into that downtown core.
And it kind of draws back to our collaboration episode that we did with Wellington, and just in terms of just collaborating with all the businesses that are around the area, it seems like their BIA, as you would call it,
Yeah.
has definitely done well to make sure that everybody does work together.
Right.
Yeah. So again, like we mentioned, we haven't been there, so we can't really talk too much about our personal experiences actually inside the brewery. But I think it's not too far from us. I think it's definitely a place where we'd like to hit up at one point.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely be down for a little bit of a road trip. Stop in there, maybe go down to Windsor and hit it on the way back as well. It's not too far off from the highways, as we said, so that's kind of nice.
Absolutely. We're going to link all their information on our social media pages, Instagram and Untapped, just so you guys are aware of Lot 10 in Amherstburg.
Yeah, so that's good information. One thing we wanted to kind of touch base on and kind of give a shout out to everybody is just our supporters, our listeners, our followers. So we know that a lot of people are interested in Lot 10, and that's great. But for ourselves, we've been getting some pretty good feedback as well.
Absolutely. There's been some people out there that have been listening, which is very nice.
Yeah, we've had 3 episodes. It's our 4th one now. So definitely seeing quite a geographical range of listeners as well, which is awesome. So in Canada, we've seen multiple provinces outside of Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, I think Alberta and Nova Scotia as well.
We have had a couple listeners.
And we've hit down south as well, the States, because they're trying to get rid of the whole Trump-Biden thing right now, so they listen to us apparently. So California, Texas, Arizona, Connecticut, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Virginia.
And then internationally, we have got some international listeners. We hope they come back and listen again to this episode, but Saudi Arabia, the Netherlands, the Philippines, Pakistan. Anybody that is listening to us, please feel free to reach out. Let us know what you're liking, what you're not liking, and then still what kind of beers you enjoy, and maybe a list of craft brewery.
Yeah. Hit us up with some of your favorites as well that we can maybe tie into future episodes for sure.
Absolutely.
Slide in the DMs. Let us know what you like.
Slide right in.
There you go. So that's the brewery. That's our kind of shout out to everybody who's listening. We like that. So we're going to take a look at the first beer.
Let's do it.
All right. So first of all, we want to thank Lot 10 and Brian for supplying the beers on today's episode.
Thanks, Brian.
And,
thank you, Brian.
And first beer that we're going to open, like we mentioned, is Nuclear Sunset, which again is a New England IPA. It has a 7 ABV and 35 IBUs.
Right. So Lot 10, they've got some notes on this beer. They classify it as unfiltered and heavily dry hopped. It's beautifully hazy with slight bready notes. Citrus is the dominant flavor.
Now, of course, we're going to put this on our Untapped page, and you can follow us at Craft Beer Connoisseurs. The overall rating for the Nuclear Sunset is 3.69 bottle caps out of 5, and a total of 150 check-ins.
All right, let's open her up. Oh. There we go.
Nice. Now, as we pour these beers, just want to let everyone know that we're drinking out of an IPA glass today, which you will see, of course, on our Untapped and Instagram. And make sure to use your proper glassware, everyone.
Pours very nicely. I will say that right now.
Like that.
It's definitely hazy.
Look at that.
All right.
That's very hazy.
Right?
Good color.
Yeah, definitely.
Very nice color.
They mentioned that it's unfiltered. Definitely get that. A little fun stuff floating around in there.
A little pulpy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But we talked about this before, right? I
have a strong feeling that the citrus is going to dominate before I even taste this beer.
Well, definitely coming through with the citrus aroma.
On the nose, for sure.
Absolutely.
Can I drink it now?
No.
Damn it.
Not yet. We're talking about the smells of the beer. What do you smell, Fife?
Citrus. I smell a hint of... I can't put my name on it, or finger on it, sorry. Can't put my name on it.
Can't do any of it.
No. There is a Brett type of beer, but
yes, this is definitely not a Brett IPA.
Do not put the Brett on this one, all right? This is just a New England.
I've had some Brett stuff, and it is not overly that great.
Okay.
Well, so the tasting notes said that it does have some bready, not Brett, bready notes to it. And I think I'm getting a little bit of that Nothing crazy. Definitely the citrus, I agree, is coming through on the nose, but absolutely a little bit of that bready note. So it'll be interesting to see how much that comes through when we.
I'm thinking
when we
it's the yeast that they would have used in the
right, and that's what I'm getting to. Like I can definitely smell that, and I don't know if it's because I got a big nose and I can just pick that out a little bit easier. But
for those who can't see Tyler, his nose is massive.
She's a big schnoz, but I could pick that bready kind of like smell up, which is nice. All right. Fife.
Brett,
oh yeah, finally.
Take a sip.
Oh yeah. That 7% hits you though.
Yeah,
that's strong.
It is.
In a good
way, and just a few sips into it, a little bit more than the 35 IBUs. I feel not
that
like
could
crazy.
be because it's a 7 though, right? Like
the 7%. Yeah,
it might be coming across as a little bit heavy, if you will.
I almost feel like that bread you can almost taste like the yeast and whatnot throughout.
It's a very dominant flavor, I'd say.
Absolutely,
actually.
Absolutely.
And I'm not getting as much citrus as I was kind of hoping I would.
Almost feels like it's more like a tangerine or like a mango.
Yeah.
Tangerine's probably the way I'd go with it, right? Like that kind of flavor profile. The bread portion, I'm not getting a lot of it myself.
No,
not a whole lot, but I'm trying to struggle, I guess, between the bready kind of flavor of it and that alcohol kind of flavor, right?
Yeah,
correct.
And I know our producer Lawrence is saying he's getting a bit of grapefruit.
Okay.
So,
Maybe that's where I'm coming from with the mango tangerine kind of thing.
Yeah. As a New England IPA, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess
it's
that
all
kind of makes a little bit of sense. But no, it's a nice beer. I'm having a couple sips into it. I don't find it too overpowering in any which direction. I think it kind of the flavor profile complements each other. So whatever that is, it's not completely in my face.
Yeah, and there's no kind of crazy aftertaste in it that you might get. Sometimes you do get that with a hazy IPA. I definitely like this beer quite a bit, actually.
Now you can definitely tell in the color of it that you can definitely tell it's unfiltered, and I think I'm getting that unfiltered taste throughout.
Yeah.
Because again, as I mentioned earlier, this has a 7%. Usually, a lot of hazies or New Englands, for example, because they kind of filter on both.
Yeah.
Are usually between like the 5.5 and kind of 6.5%. So this one's a little strong, but I'm definitely enjoying what's coming out of this glass right now.
It's interesting if I could just kind of cut
absolutely.
in. Yeah, the grapefruit flavor that the producer mentioned earlier on. As I kind of got a couple more sips in, I took a kind of a bigger gulp. And I got that grapefruit at the back end. So I don't know.
Maybe I need to take a really big.
So
gulp.
what you're saying is I should just chug the rest of it.
I'm going to encourage at least a little bit more for sure.
Okay,
just
I can do that for you.
Get a big gulp in there.
There you go. That was a big gulp.
No. Yes.
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm getting like a nice mixture of grapefruit and bread.
Yeah. I agree with you, Brett. Like the bready notes are really coming through to me.
Which I don't notice on too many beers. Sorry if I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
cut them off.
You're cut.
Done.
You're right. And one other beer that I just had this recently, actually, so that's why I'm thinking about it, is the IPA at Anderson. It's not in New England, but it has kind of a lot of that bready note as well. So that's kind of one beer that I've noticed it in as well.
Yeah, I think it stays true to what was described earlier on.
For sure.
I think it's definitely citrusy. It's definitely got that bread component to it. Brings it all together. It ties it in nicely.
I think it all falls into the top 5 flavor profiles that are on tap. So hazy, hoppy, juicy, citrus, bread.
Yeah. And I like how it certainly is hazy. It definitely looks hazy. So that's kind of sometimes we see beers labeled as hazy IPAs, and they don't necessarily deliver on that. But I think at this point, we should probably see what the rest of the Untapped community thinks about this beer.
Yeah. All right. So Steve F. Steve's Pissed is his username.
What a handle.
Yeah, big handle of the guy.
I wonder if it's like he's got like a brother or a person, like a doppelganger who's like Steve's Happy.
Yeah.
Could be.
Maybe.
I'm also just curious, if he was just upset when he was making his account. Like, I don't know if he was struggling. There's maybe some issues with it. He's like, you know what? I'm pissed. So
I'm pissed, so Steve's pissed.
Steve's Pissed. That's my handle. On December 27th, 2019, so this is going back around Christmas time there, he has this to say: huge flavor, smooth taste, nice finish. And they gave it a 4.25 out of 5. The interesting thing with Steve's check-in picture is it's an empty glass. So I assume he took it after he consumed the beer?
Yeah.
So his username should be more like Steve's Drunk, not Steve's Pissed.
Maybe that's what he means by pissed. Maybe that's what it is.
There you
Ties
go.
it all together.
Yeah.
There you go. I think, Brett, you might have posted a few pictures in the past like that.
Right.
There's been a couple, or maybe a couple blurry pictures, perhaps.
Yeah. Before you actually started refining your photography
Absolutely.
skills.
Yeah.
So actually, now this is all coming a little bit clearer, unlike the filtered portion of this New England IPA. But Steve's profile says no tasters here, 12 ounces plus for check-ins. So it's true to those words because he doesn't have the taster badge for himself, which makes sense why he could be actually pissed, as in pissed drunk, because he doesn't do tasters.
Yeah.
He gets them.
That's A-okay.
So let's call him Steve's Drunk.
Steve's Drunk
Let's do it.
is good.
Well, we'll give Steve a friend request on Untapped
Absolutely.
either way. Yeah.
Right.
The next one is on November 2nd of 2019, so this is going back to last year, BC, before COVID. Mike M., his username handle is Myers87, and Kristen M.
Mike Myers?
It could be Mike Myers.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
could
right.
be.
Could be Mike Myers.
Could be Austin Powers.
Yeah,
we don't know.
All right.
And Kristen
Shaggy.
M. checked in together, but there was no comment for either. Want to point out the fact that their pictures have a flight paddle of 10 beers.
Okay.
10
So I
beers.
might have a feeling that when we go to lot 10, we're going to have to get the paddle of 10 beers.
Absolutely. And hopefully they have at least 10 beers on tap to
I would
fill
hope
that.
so.
Yeah.
You would think being lot 10, they would have 10 beers on tap, right? That makes sense to me.
That makes a ton of sense. There you go.
Thinker, not just another pretty face over here.
It's good marketing, so
Right.
let's hope that pays out for them.
Mike
If
gave
not,
it a 3.75 out of 5, and Christian only gave it a 3.25.
All right. Well, those are pretty good ratings. I guess I'll get us started with these. I think I'm going to land right on a 4.0.
Okay. I think I'm a 3.75. I like the citrus that's coming out of it, but just that bread kind of just lingers there that you don't really normally expect from a New England.
okay, that's fair. So for myself, I'm thinking I'm going to be at a 4. I'm going to be at a 4. And for producer Lawrence, he is coming in at a 3.75 rating.
Yeah, and so just getting that calculation from Lawrence here. So as a team, we're at 3.875. So we'll bump that up to a 4.0.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go look at beer number 2, which is on deck.
The second beer today is a summer seasonal Pinky Pledge, a raspberry wheat, and it has an ABV of 5.0 and 12 IBU.
Now, the notes from Lot 10 on this beer are that this one is unfiltered and hazy and brilliantly pink in color.
They don't want to buy filters?
I guess not, because
All right.
we're having 2 unfiltered beers today.
Sounds
so
good.
We'll see. And hopefully we see that brilliant pinkness in the color. They also describe it as tart with a strong raspberry aroma and flavor.
Yeah, so it's a refreshing summer sipper. I know we are full into fall here, but
Yeah.
let's bring it back a little bit to summer season. And even though, as I said, summer's over, Lot 10 keeps this popular beer available into the fall. So that's why we're...
So I have a good feeling this is going to be a good beer, eh?
let's hope so.
I think it will.
Well, the Untapped community has this beer checked in 78 times with an overall rating of 3.63 bottle caps out of 5.
All right. Open her up.
All right, now as we pour this beer here, I just want to let everyone know that we are drinking it out of a Weizen glass. So these glasses are perfect for drinking, American wheat beers, Witte beers, Hefeweizens, and just want to make sure everyone is using the proper glassware.
All right, just taking a look at it. I get a very rosé kind of feel to it.
I almost feel like I'm having like an 8-ounce rosé. I'm not a wine person. I'm not a wine connoisseur, hence the reason why it's called craft beer connoisseurs, not wine connoisseurs.
And nor is it 8 ounces.
No, it's not.
That is correct.
Looking at the quantity of this,
This is not a taster.
No, it's not. So it does come in the bottle. And what's the quantity of the bottle there, Chris?
I think it's a 500 ml.
Yeah, it looks like a 500 ml.
It's not labeled, but I would guess 500 ml.
Well, they do have a little bit of a label on it. You know, they make craft beer and awesomeness.
That's what it says.
So I'm hoping this beer is going to be freaking awesome.
Yes.
So to the nose, raspberry heavy.
Very. And they said
And
that,
not,
right?
and not a bad thing.
No, it's definitely
Not a bad
not.
thing.
And I like raspberry beers. My favorite beer probably is the Berry White from Sons of Kent. It's a raspberry wheat. So I'm kind of interested to see how that kind of compares to one of my favorite beers that are out there.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
And we're definitely getting the, it's kind of pink, right? Like
Yeah. It's that rosé kind of feel to it.
But it's certainly hazy, right? So they mentioned that it's hazy and unfiltered. Definitely hazy as well, which is nice from a wheat beer.
Is it time to taste yet?
I don't. You can go ahead if you want to taste.
Leo.
Go ahead and taste if you want. I'm just taking
I'm a person who
taking
likes
a look
to
at it.
get the beer out of the way as soon as I pour it. I have no patience.
For sure. No, that's true. So it says it's unfiltered, but it is pretty. It looks pretty good. Like I could see through it. Pretty good.
There's nothing hanging around it, like
sure.
like we saw in the Nuclear Sunset, right?
Right. And it's interesting because I'm looking over at yours and I don't know if it's just a condensation on the glass or not, but like yours looks a little bit darker than mine does.
I agree. Holding it up to the
side
light
by
here.
side, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like yours is hazy and mine's more translucent.
Maybe I just poured it better.
Or worse.
Oh.
Or worse. Well, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Who knows? I don't know. We're not keeping track. Is
No.
anybody at home? If you are keeping track, that's,
Yeah,
that's good.
who's
So
poured the best?
we'll take a look
It's
at
me. Don't worry about it.
that. All right.
I win.
Let's get a sip in
Yeah,
here.
let's taste this here.
Finally, I will sip it.
Well, definitely a little bit tart.
Tart definitely comes off the
Yeah,
start.
from that raspberry, of course.
I don't get it.
No? Why
Yeah,
not?
I don't get tart at all.
Really?
Like at all.
I definitely poured better then.
Yeah, no, and producer Lawrence agrees with me. So I think we got ourselves a 2-2 split on
Oh,
this
it's a
one.
split.
Okay. Well, who's
I
gonna
don't-
split the vote?
Well, I think we'll have to look at the Untapped community when we get there and see what they have to say.
For sure.
Compare our ratings with theirs, and maybe there'll be a comment on that.
The one thing I do notice is it might be a little bit more watered down.
Yeah, it's. I get what you're saying because like you kind of get that raspberry flavor, but you want a little bit more and a little bit more, from a wheat beer, like even a little bit more kind of hot flavor coming through. But
It drinks very light.
yeah, very.
it is
Light
very
drinks
light.
lighter than 5%.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what we have to look at here. Is it's not the kind of wheat kind of base to it.
Right.
It is light, and I think that's why it's kind of clean throughout it. But I don't get that tardiness at all. I get a strong raspberry kind of flavor to it. For some reason, I keep going back to like the smell and maybe the flavor is kind of like like a raspberry vitamin. I don't know why that's kind of like entered my mind, but that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay. Like a kid's vitamin?
Yeah, almost like the grape Flintstone vitamin.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
If they had a raspberry one, that would be this.
Okay.
I don't know why.
I you know what? I'm having a few more sips. I understand why you feel that way for sure. I kind of
You
get
almost
that.
sound like a therapist, and I like this. Keep
I
going.
understand why you feel that
Keep
way.
telling me what-
Tell me your problems,
Keep
Tyler.
telling me that you understand the reason why I feel this way. This is nice. I like this. This is a good session.
Like like I said, I can understand why you're saying that. I'm not sure what exactly is giving that idea, but for sure,
It's hard to put your finger on.
Yeah, it is. This is an interesting
Or your name
beer.
on it.
Finger, name, any body part whatsoever.
It's kind of a complex beer in the sense that there's like, we're talking about all these crazy different flavors and like everyone's kind of feeling something a little bit different and we're not able to exactly agree on something, which is interesting, right? Because, it's good to kind of have.
When have we ever agreed on anything?
Well, that's a good
That's
point.
true. The creation of this podcast was one.
Right.
And may be the only one.
That's something.
So
That is
thank-
right.
thank for that.
The one thing I do notice as I'm getting more into this beer is this is definitely real raspberries versus a raspberry puree. Right? Which I
think
think
so,
is
yeah.
kind of where going back to my comparison of the raspberry wheat, like Berry White from Sons of Kent. That's more of a raspberry puree, which again has more of the pink color to it, which is maybe why the raspberry is a lot stronger in that beer versus this one particularly.
Right.
Yeah.
Seems very authentic. It is a summer beer. I would have this in the summer. Any other time that you guys would probably enjoy this?
Well, I mean, it's
right
fall
now?
right now, so
Are you enjoying it?
I do like it a lot. I think it would be definitely, it would feel a little strange to have this kind of in the middle of the winter.
Right.
But I think, summer for sure, even kind of late spring as we're getting into that kind of summer
The
feel.
seasonal berry kind of time for it. Yeah.
Exactly. So maybe if you're going out to pick raspberries, bring a beer with you. Bring this beer.
For sure. Fight?
This seems like a beer that would be like one of the first releases of summer. I feel
Yes.
like, right? Like, you're just kind of hopping in like maybe like mid-June around my birthday, kind of this is when the raspberry kind of season is around. I'm not a fruit farmer by any stretch of imagination. I don't know when raspberry season actually is. But
Good to be honest.
we're just going to assume it's around there because I do see a lot of raspberry beers come out around that particular time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing with this kind of beer. It is probably a good introductory beer for non-craft beer drinkers. I think it goes down nice because it is light. It is clean.
Yeah.
At least I feel like it is. It would probably be a good transition to say, hey, have this. You don't get like that beery, kind of like hoppy, malty kind of flavored, right?
Exactly.
It's
Which
very
kind of
light
turns
clean.
off the craft beer drinkers is when they get like those crazy hops, those huge IBU beers. So I agree. Definitely, this is good starting place for a craft beer person.
So let's say if somebody wasn't a craft beer drinker like ourselves, what would you kind of compare it to? Let's say, for example, if they were to go to a restaurant, what kind of beer would they buy that would be somewhat similar to this?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about wheat beers specifically, you might think of like a Belgian Moon. They're definitely very easy to find, like you said, at restaurants
pretty
and
much
everything.
everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that would be, and I think a lot of people would drink that who aren't craft beer fans. So I think that would be a good kind of comparison. Again, the raspberry kind of differentiates it, but
Before craft beer was a big thing, Belgian Moon was my go-to, right?
yeah,
Right. So I think I'd be interested to see, kind of going back to how they do these beer cocktails.
yeah.
I could see this working out really well in a lot of different kind of beer cocktails. So I don't know
That's
if
a good
this,
point.
I don't know if this is like a base beer that they would use,
I just feel as though it would be, yeah.
but I could see this really working out really well with a lot of different kind of cocktails because the raspberry flavor does come through huge. It's a light beer, so your complexities in what you're using to kind of mix match with it.
Even kind of, if you wanted to mix beers, like I wonder what it would be like to mix it with the Nuclear Sunset that we just had, right? Kind of have like almost a fruited IPA.
Right.
That
So
would
it's
be
almost
interesting.
like when we went back to earlier talking about the Belgian Moon. For our American listeners, that's Blue Moon for you.
Right.
FYI.
Yes.
Just so you know,
'Cause we mentioned
we're
we do
different
have-
up in Canada,
We
okay?
do have quite a few American listeners, so I want to make sure they're able to follow along.
Ain't that the truth, eh? So, looking at the top 5 flavor profiles, we've kind of talked about it in our discussion as we've kind of gone through. I think we've kind of hit these keys, right? So, raspberry, light, subtle, clean, and sweet. I'm getting, I would say, 4 to the 5, if not all 5.
I would think so too.
Yeah, a little bit less on the sweet for me, but I agree.
Yeah, it's not
Definitely.
as sweet as what they're kind of portraying,
Yeah.
but I get that definitely. So, Chris, what does the Untapped community have to say about this?
Yeah, so our first review comes from Kenny S. Handle Skenner11, I guess we'll call it. So on July 11th, he had this to say. All he said was, "The company is better." Ooh, so he gave it a 2.75 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah, so he did tag Lindsay M, Linz MS in the check-in. So obviously Lindsay is really good company.
All right, we'll take that. And so we have Rich M for the second one. So Rich_Morel on August 2nd, 2019. He commented, "The wonderful taste like it has fresh raspberries from the produce stand." I get that.
Yeah, and that's what
100%.
you were mentioning,
Yeah.
Brad.
I think
right?
that's
Yeah.
straight from there. When you're not a farmer, but we'll take your
No
insight.
farming here.
So, Rich, they gave it a 5 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at him go.
Right? So 76 of Rich's 456 chickens have been 5s. So it's 17%. That's a high amount.
is
That's
a
also
high
very
number.
quick math you just did.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't have producer problems.
Yeah.
Hashtag,
what it is.
hashtag producer problems. That's going to be our hashtag for the episode, producer problems.
Anyway, so I should probably get started into our ratings for this beer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm going to go with a 3.75. I
Okay.
think it's doesn't drink like a 5% as advertised, but the raspberry flavor is definitely there. That brings it up for sure.
Right. I think because it is that 5%, it is light. You get that raspberry flavor. I'm coming in at 4.25. And Chris, what's your rating?
I'm going to give it a 3.0. I'm going to diverge a little bit from you guys. So it's a little bit watery, like we kind of mentioned earlier, and I'm not getting as much raspberry flavor as I was kind of hoping for. But taking a look at producer Lawrence, he's giving it a 4.25.
All right.
So again, kind of agreeing with you guys. So overall, that gives us a 3.8125 rating, which we will round down a little bit to 3.75.
And I guess that concludes our conversation on Lot 10 Brewing out of Hammersburg.
Nice. Yeah, so just stay tuned, and we're going to talk about Halloween. All right, guys, Halloween's coming up in a couple of days, so we wanted to talk about that. So I just kind of want to get your overall thoughts on Halloween as a holiday, because I know it can be a little bit controversial.
Well, as a kid, I really liked it. As a person in college, I really, really liked it. And now, it's another day on the calendar, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And for myself, I think Halloween is kind of probably enjoyed in different kind of like seasons throughout your life.
Yeah.
I was never a huge fan as a kid. I went out with the family and I tolerated it, but we'll get to kind of like how we enjoyed that experience as a child. University, those kinds of days, it was somewhat fun, but at the same time, like I'd put on my ball uniform. I was a baseball player. Who doesn't like...
Which I also did the same.
Yeah, and who doesn't like a ball player, nice white tight pants, right? Little knickers, high socks. But at the same time, I was also in a committed relationship. So, it wasn't a huge fan of it then. And even now, like I don't like to celebrate. I don't like to get dressed up, even on a good day.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like as a kid, free candy, sign me up, right? Kind of in that university time is like, it is what it is. And now, having a kid is kind of interesting to see, and dressing her up in costumes.
Right.
It's a different perspective of it as well.
Sure. Now, for myself personally, it's going to be my first year with having a child for Halloween.
Yeah.
Now, granted, she can't really have candy yet, so I don't know how
can.
much it's going to be.
But you can.
But I can eat
We've
it all,
talked
right?
about how much you enjoy to eat.
I do. We didn't do any food pairings this episode. Dang it. Anyway. But going back to your point about when you get free candy as a kid.
Yeah.
I would always go to this house. It was maybe like 4 or 5 houses down from me when I was younger.
Right.
And they would always give RC Cola.
Oh,
like just a can of RC Cola.
Yeah.
No, like, Sour Patch Kids or Fuzzy Peaches. Just a can of RC Cola and then tell you to get lost.
Yeah. Build your pipes, because if that was one of the first houses that you stopped at, you're out there for another hour and a half.
That's a heavy bag.
That's a heavy bag. So producer Lawrence came in with some comments here, so I want to touch base on those. We could kind of touch base on the carving the pumpkins kind of tradition. Do you guys carve pumpkins? He did.
I do as well. It gets very, very messy, and I absolutely hate the cleanup of it.
Yes, I agree. I don't like the actual cleaning out the pumpkin.
Right.
That's the worst part for sure. Carving the pumpkin, that's fun. My pumpkins don't usually look very good, which sucks.
You're not artistic?
No.
Yeah, me either.
Definitely not. So
That's why we don't
should
do
have a
it.
pumpkin carving contest.
We're
all gonna suck at it.
Sorry, so that's the thing is like I'm kind of impartial with the carving of the pumpkins.
Right.
We either do it or we don't. I'm not going out to a pumpkin patch and taking those cute pictures and grabbing a pumpkin, bringing it home, carving it out. If it happens, it happens, but it's not something I like seek out for tradition every year.
Yeah, I'm always got the triangle eyes, the typical mouth with
rectangular
a few
teeth up, teeth down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that for Halloween, there's 2 different sides of it. The first side is people are going to go all out.
Right.
Say, for example, they're going to decorate the house in and out.
Right.
They're going to have specific dishes, napkins. Outside's going to be, very scary, maybe some music playing. Mm-hmm. Or you're going to have somebody who just turns their lights off and watches whatever's on TV and hopes nobody knocks on the door.
You maybe put the pot light on for an hour and a half and see what kids stop
exactly,
at.
Right?
Yeah, and speaking of kind of like, doing things as a child, I remember this one house that would be not on my street, but pretty close to my street. They would basically empty out their garage, make it a haunted house.
Wow. Committed to the cause.
Yeah,
Right.
humongous lineups. Kids going through, you know, they'd have the people hanging out in the background, jumping out to scare you. That was awesome. That was an awesome experience. Everyone in the neighborhood made sure to hit that house.
Right.
Now, do you remember back in the day, it was a big thing, maybe when we were young, the UNICEF, when you would put the law around your neck and
Right.
you go, hi, I'm collecting for UNICEF. You don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
No, you don't. And
I don't know why that is.
It might be different though from like,
Yeah.
I don't know because I don't have a kid, right? So I'm not going out. I don't know if schools even do that, if they run that program anymore. So I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just remember my mom would always hand out the Halloween candy, and she would bring up the jar of, you know, pennies and dimes and nickels and everything just to have that in case the kids came, right?
And I think there was some kind of strategy. Like I remember that there was like prizes that you'd get, like kind of like collecting the most amount. And I wondered about like who sat down to like kind of like strategize a game plan. Like, okay, we're going to go out early and then we're just going to ask for everybody. Because if you have 120, 130 kids showing up at your door, how do you say, okay, I'm going to give 10 cents to these kids, 5 to these kids? No, you're just dumping that puppy in number one.
I think you just rate them on their costumes.
There
See,
you go.
That'd be an interesting kind of concept, right? Okay.
Right.
So other Halloween traditions, I think going back, thank you, Deb and Jeff, for doing this for me. It's my parents, shout out to them, was always going to like the grandparents' place. And that kind of hit, you know, the heart a little bit. And that was always nice.
That's when you get the full-size chocolate bar, not the snack-size chocolate bar. Right?
Grandma and Grandpa always kept that. They'd be handing out those like Halloween snack-size Snickers. But no, you always got it as a grandchild, you know, the old Henrys. But those memories, I think I'll always keep those with me throughout my life. And same thing, looking at producer Lawrence too, is always going to the grandparents, whether around the block or you saddle up in the car, you're all full decked out in your costume, you show up to the door, you ring the doorbell, trick or treat, and then they're like, oh, who are these kids? Like completely pretending like they don't
Playing
have
so dumb.
Yeah.
clue. Meanwhile, you're young, you're innocent, you have no idea, and your mom's standing right behind you. So like you don't put that connection together. Like, oh, they should know because I'm here with my mother, who's their daughter.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or like, there's my dad, which is their son.
Yeah.
Right. So those are always good memories.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is necessarily a tradition, but I would always go trick-or-treating with this one kid that lived down the street, one of my friends, Sebastian. So shout out, Sebastian, if you're listening. And he was actually allergic to peanuts. So all the peanut
Nice.
candies into my bag.
Did you have to trade for him, or you just...
No, just straight up.
Straight in.
That's a good friend right there.
Yeah, I know.
The one thing I was going to talk about was the spookiest kind of stories that we have, or the scariest kind of stories, maybe some paranormal stuff, if you will. I don't know if people out there are into like ghosts and things like that. I wasn't until this particular story that happened to myself personally. So I went to an old elementary school. It was built in like 1920.
Do you want to name it?
No.
Okay.
It is closed. It is closed now, though. It doesn't exist. It's actually a missionary church now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, pretty impressive. So anyway, this is going to get creepy, just so you know. So it all starts in the boys' change room.
That sounds very creepy already.
Sounds like spooky season to me.
So you'd
Good
walk.
thing we've got therapist Chris on hand here.
So you'd walk into the boys' change room, and this was about, I would say, a year after our former principal had passed away. And he passed away while he was our principal at the school. I think he was like maybe mid-60s. I think he had a heart attack or something. I can't remember. But so he passed away actually in the school. He had a heart attack while he was in the school at like, I think it was after hours, like 3:30, like shortly after school.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, like a month or so later, I went in the change room to get changed for gym. And somebody, I can't remember who it was, would turn off the lights. So it'd be a bunch of us in the change room with no lights on.
Right.
And there was a white hallowing part by the air conditioner up top that would just hallow there for like 10 seconds. And it would just sit there and kind of move. And I got so freaked out, I ran out of the change room into the principal's office and literally my underwear and a t-shirt. Because I was so...
That alone is
freaking
spooky
scared.
season. That alone scares me.
Right?
Yeah. The sheer thought of that
So
happening.
think of that now.
Wow. That's interesting.
And were any other kids in the change
I
room
was
spooked
not
out?
the only one who ran out. I would say it was a good 50-50 split. Because you got the people who are like so scared shitless that they're like, This is no way. And then they get back to like, man, that's pretty cool.
Right.
Like, what is that thing doing up there?
So if we can get anybody who can corroborate the story here, that'd be good.
That would be good, yeah.
Slide into our DMs and let us know if you are part of this Brett Pfeiffer experience.
Thanks for throwing out the full name there. Appreciate it.
Yeah, in the change room. So, let us know.
That does not sound right.
Let us know.
Yeah, the way you started that story just...
Chris, you
great.
set it up, and I'm scared to death. Chris, do you want to go ahead and talk about our little paranormal activity?
Yeah, so, obviously with Halloween, you kind of like to watch scary movies. That's kind of a natural thing. So if anyone remembers, the movie Paranormal Activity came out, I don't know, maybe 2010, 2009,
2009, yeah.
Something like that.
Right.
There were a few sequels after that. Anyways, I know that we saw that movie in the theater, and it was actually a very scary movie. I think at first we thought it was actually one of those real movies. Like,
we were on the fence of like, is this actually like a documentary of what happened?
Right.
Until we realized it was very mainstream.
Did you guys just go see it together? Like, just two of you?
No, actually, it was your house and the place I lived.
It was a pretty big group of people.
Yeah, I think we had like 8 people that went.
Yeah, so, kind of getting to it, it was a small budget movie, and it made a ton of money. What they kind of did was said, okay, if for all of our supporters, give us your names. We're going to put you in the credits. So Tyler and I are in the credits of Paranormal Activity. No big deal.
Don't IMDb it, because I don't think it's there. But it is true if you actually...
It is very true. I have the DVD.
I was just going to say, if you can get a copy of the DVD, it is in there. It was a limited time period of like 72 hours. You could go online and put your name in. And I think there wasn't really any restrictions pretty much for putting a name in, because I've seen some funny ones on there.
You could just put anything. I remember either getting a text from you or like a Facebook message and being like, look at this link. And we just kind of...
That's what it was.
We're like, we need to do this.
I hit you up on the old BlackBerry Storm and I said, listen. Like,
did you BBM him?
Probably.
Yeah, probably did. Yeah, I was in between my game of Brick Breaker. So I said, I'm going to take a break from that, throw it over and see if he wants to join me on that. So, yeah, it's interesting kind of... I don't think many movies have ever really done that.
No,
right?
I don't think so.
And probably for good reason.
Yeah, because the list was huge. Like, if you actually play it back in real time, don't speed it up, because it is sped up.
It goes really quick. It's probably about 10 minutes real time to get through all the names.
Yeah, there's thousands of names on there. So, no, that was our kind of like Paranormal Activity claim to fame, 15 minutes of fame. The name is in the credits. Whoop, whoop, go us.
Yeah, whatever.
Look at you guys go. You guys are like almost movie stars.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the foundation of where we wanted to starting the movie business, moving to the podcast business. So
you were thinking of it 10 years before.
I
like it.
Well ahead of it.
Yeah. So, do you guys think that we have anything else, or are we all good on this one?
I do have one last comment, by the way, for all our listeners out there.
All right, so that wraps that up, and we're going to hit it with a farewell soon.
That's all the time we have for today's episode.
Keep on listening every other Thursday as Craft Beer Connoisseurs releases a new episode.
Make sure to tell your friends, family, and your local brewmaster.
So from all of us and producer Lawrence, I'm Chris.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Tyler.
And together, we're the Craft Beer Connoisseurs.